Rock Podcast, talking all things Disney, with your hosts, Aljon Go and Dave Bossert.
Welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast. If this is your first time hearing the show, welcome. Every week we talk all things Disney and pop culture with never before heard stories and behind the scenes moments from some of your favorite Disney films, theme park attractions, performances, books, music, and much more. I'm your co-host, musician, and longtime Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars fan, also pop culturist. And you can email me, Aljon, A-L-J-O-N, at skullrockpodcast.com.
And I'm Dave Bossert, artist, filmmaker, author, and welcome to our podcast. If you love Disney and pop culture, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. And of course, we're now on iHeartRadio, which I think is fantastic. And also, please like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you can also email me at Dave@SkullRock. I was going to say
Skull Rock Plus.
I just had a brain fade. No, you can email me at Dave@SkullRockPodcast.com.
I was going to say, you're going to say Dave@SkullRockPlus.com.
Yeah, really. Dave@SkullRockPodcast.com. Hey, Aljon, how are you? How was your week?
Oh, great. So it's great, but yet it isn't. And I'll tell you, this week was really difficult. Like most of the country, we had that huge cold snap that just went across the United States. And my friends in Texas, my heart goes out to you. I know that, there are still, at this point, as we record this, people that aren't without power. And it is really disconcerting, very concerning. I know it's gotten to be like really dreadful, loss of life, below freezing temperatures. And we experienced it here in Nashville. The storm went over us. And yesterday was the first day in over a week that my wife and I and the kids traveled, broke through the ice to try to get some supplies and stuff and just to get out of the house. Now, luckily, we were okay, but I will tell you, Dave, that the back streets were completely iced over. And for whatever reason, we had to go and get medication for my wife in a different city because we were totally out, and they couldn't get us the medicine that she needed. So we traveled to the adjacent city. And we're not familiar with where some of these places are. So I did the whole Google Maps thing, and Google Maps took us from the main road and took us a back road to get back home. And I was like, I was literally, just like going 15 miles an hour on these roads because they were completely iced over. And so we had to stop and get some coffee, and because it took us like 2 to 3 times the length of time to get back home than it did. But yes, I mean, the cold snap was real. It was super crazy, and we had so much ice, to contend with. And I just really feel for these people that are out there, and these poor animals that, abandoned pets and different things like that have to contend with these below freezing temperatures. I'm just really, really saddened by all this.
It's amazing. My sister-in-law lives down in Houston, Texas, and she didn't lose power, but she opened her house up. She had people come over who had lost power and needed to, stay warm and do some laundry or do a few things. But I have to tell you, for a storm to wreak this much havoc, something's wrong with the system down there. I mean, people really have to take a hard look at their, power grid. I felt so bad for all of those people who had broken pipes and water raining down out of their ceilings and just ruining their homes. I mean, just shocking to me. It really was unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't think anything can really prepare you for the type of weather that we had. And now it looks like we're going to be getting spring now. And, I'm okay with that. Of course, I'm okay with that. But gosh, we even had places, I just was watching the news, and because people couldn't get out and get their vaccinations. They ended up a smart doctor, several doctors decided to open up pop-up places to go ahead and get people inoculated so that every single vaccine would not go to waste. And so
and some of those people are getting into trouble for doing it, which is beyond me.
Yeah.
I think the goal is just get the vaccines into people's arms.
That's right. That's right. Don't let it go to waste. We've waited so long to make this happen. And I think, they should be applauded for their efforts, because you definitely don't want it to go to waste. You don't want it to go to waste.
No, you can't. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, thank you so much. If you're just tuning in, we just rap about the stuff that we love to talk about, mostly pop culture, Disney, and all this stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about the latest and greatest news, shall we, Dave?
Well, you know what? I do want to just mention we were planning on having a guest.
Oh, yes.
Animator director Dan Jupe, and he canceled a couple days ago because his mother went into the hospital. So I just want to say, we're sending good thoughts and prayers out to Dan and his family, and we will get him back rescheduled on the show at some point in the future. But we just hope his mother improves and recovers. So, we're sending our best out to him.
Absolutely. Please, Mom, get well soon. And Dan, we look forward to having you back on the show. I just hope everybody is taking care of themselves and each other, really.
Yeah. Hey, and this was bound to happen, Aljon. I mean, when we do, you do a weekly show, things happen, and, they're out of your control. And especially now with, the pandemic and all this craziness that's been going on in our world, these things do happen. But we have a great show ahead with a ton of stuff to talk about. Really, a lot.
We absolutely do. So let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah.
Skull Rock Podcast, ripped from the headlines. It's Skull Rock Podcast headline news.
Disney has found a way to bring hope back into my life, Dave. They found a way, yes. The magical celebration begins October 1st in honor of Walt Disney World Resort's 50th anniversary.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. I was so glad when I saw this headline, because I was hoping that the company was going to do something to mark this really amazing milestone of Walt Disney World being open for 50 years.
Yeah. It breaks my heart that we weren't able to go to Disneyland, and Disneyland wasn't open on their birthday for the first time. For the first time since its opening, Disneyland was denied a birthday celebration. However,
and it was a milestone too, 65th anniversary. 65
years too. You're right, absolutely right. And so, while our hearts were broken, we understand. This is a very interesting time that we live in currently. If you're listening to this in the future, maybe we're hopefully beyond all of this. But having said that, I'll go ahead and read a little bit of this information here from Disney Parks blog from Jeremy Schofield. He says, beginning October 1st, Walt Disney World Resort will now throw the world's most magical celebration in honor of the 50th anniversary, bringing new experiences to 4 of the theme parks and beyond. This milestone is such a big deal. They've coined a new word, like, of course they do, because marketing, quote, iridescence, with the emphasis on the ear. So, so you'll be able to see everything that's shiny and sparkly over there as part of that celebration. Cinderella Castle at Magic Kingdom will add to its royal makeover from last year, which is nice. I mean, it looks storybook-like, right? So you can
I honestly, I have to say, I have very fond memories. My first Disney park experience was at Walt Disney World in Florida in 1976.
Yeah.
The bicentennial of the United States. And that summer, we took a road trip in the station wagon down to Orlando, Florida from New York.
Wagons. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It
was fantastic.
I bet. I would love to. I mean, the bicentennial was just a magical time anyway, at least from what I'm told. I was 2 years old when that happened. But that seemed to be, just looking back at some, just archival footage, that seemed to be just a magical time for the country. But
and you got to realize too that Walt Disney World back then was the Magic Kingdom and a handful of resorts.
It's true. That's true.
That was it. I mean, they had the Polynesian, they had the Contemporary, they had Fort Wilderness, and I'm missing one. What was the other one they had? They had one other, didn't they?
Yeah, the Contemporary.
Well, I said Contemporary,
okay.
Polynesian, Fort Wilderness, but there was no Fort Wilderness Lodge. Fort Wilderness was just a campground.
Yeah, just a campground. They had
Did they have the Floridian?
No, I don't think so. Not at the start. I'm trying to think. They had the tree houses over there at Fort Wilderness. Did they not? They had the tree houses.
No, those came in later, I think.
Okay, I'm losing my Disney cred, so I better move on. I better move on. But anyway, yes. So Magic Kingdom, they're going to have the golden bunting around it. So they're going to have the little flare and the little gold stuff that's all around it. They're even going to do some really cool effects with the I guess every one of those weenie icons that they're going to have out there. And when I say weenie, I mean, the attention getters, the icons of each park. So they're going to have the Hollywood Tower Hotel illuminated, the Tree of Life illuminated, and of course, Epcot. They're going to have new lights that shine reflective panels over there at Spaceship Earth, connecting to one another, resembling stars in a nighttime sky. And a permanent new lighting will continue. Will continue at Epcot as a defining feature of the park, which is absolutely amazing. By the way, it looks so good.
Yeah, and I think whenever we mention Walt Disney World or I see something about Walt Disney World, I can't help but think about Walt's brother Roy O. Disney, who came out of retirement after Walt passed away and made sure that the Walt Disney World Park in Orlando was built and got open. And it opened, and Roy O., who again was 10 years older than Walt, Roy O. passed away about 6 months later. It was sort of like he lived to get that park open, and he should be certainly remembered and honored for that.
Yes, and I love that statue of him.
Yes.
I mean, just having the Disneys, Roy and Roy O. I mean, those statues and those partner statues at every park with the Disneys is just something to behold. It's something that you remember their legacy. And I love the fact that, and by the way, last week's episode with Disney legend Floyd Norman, you can go back and listen to that and hear the story because it's a very compelling and very moving story. It's very touching, I think, because I feel like he basically lived, as you said, to fulfill the dream of Walt, which was a very, all-encompassing dream of a place where families could be together and enjoy each other's company and really just, spend time together, which is great, which is why I love Disney so much, why you love Disney so much. It's just a magical place. And to celebrate that 50th anniversary and that dream coming to life as it morphs and grows is really cool. You can make memories together and you can make memories with this new Mickey and Minnie in their iridescent outfits.
All righty.
Yeah. So, and they're going to be doing it for 18 long months. So there's an opportunity for people, if they haven't been able to go, this fall in October, they can take their time, head on over there, book their trip and enjoy and get all that 50th anniversary love that they need and fill their hearts with this iridescent stuff. So.
Yeah, I do think it's great that they really stretch out some of these anniversary celebrations because it does give an opportunity for a lot of people to plan ahead and be able to participate.
It definitely does. So I'm glad they've decided to kind of extend it so that everybody has an opportunity to try to get there. And once they get inoculated, hey, bam, they're ready to go. Yeah. Well, speaking about a different side of Disney, we talked a little bit about what's going on with Lucasfilm and Mandalorian star Gina Carano. For better or for worse, she finds herself outside of the company at this point. And it seems like the outsider Carano, and this is a headline from Hollywood Reporter. They report the ouster of Carano from the show draws the ire of the right and marks an inflection point for Lucasfilm, whose star was warned repeatedly about her social media posts. And there's been a lot of social media uproar with the Disney company as a whole over the past couple of years when it comes to posting different things, and especially in regards to politics, whether it was Roseanne or James Gunn or Letitia Wright from Black Panther or Lou Yiffey. I think I'm saying her name right, from Mulan, each drawing varying degrees of action from the studios. But of course, in Carano's case, the move to cut ties has been brewing for some time with Lucasfilm and the actress in the months leading up to the Investor Day presentation on December 10th. And of course, she was dropped by UTA, and it was also made known today, as of today, in an interview with the Daily Wire, that she had no idea she was let go until it was known or mentioned on social media, and she was dropped by her her agency. So
that's just amazing to me. And by the way, out of all the names you mentioned, James Gunn is back in the fold.
That's right. Well, and they didn't let go of Letitia.
They got rid of him, and then they brought him back a year later, and he's doing Guardians of the Galaxies.
Yeah. He was as soon as he was let go, DC took the opportunity to take him to do the new Suicide Squad movie, and then after that, he was rehired by Marvel and Disney. And then, of course, they didn't let anyone go from Mulan. They didn't let go Letitia Wright, who's still doing Black Panther and the Marvel movies.
It seems very murky and sort of willy-nilly. There doesn't seem to be any real sort of standard, if you will, with some of this stuff. Yeah, that's just my impression.
Well, I feel like all companies need to, especially when it comes to their big name talent, visible actors and actresses, they should make sure that they sign a clause in regards to activities on social media as they represent a brand, and undergo some media training. And I'm a big supporter of that, because I've been in the media. I actually do some media training. Because I think it's just really important that there is a standard. If there is a standard, then people need to adhere to it. And a lot of times they sign these NDAs to not to disparage, the company. Lucas did it with, Disney did it with George Lucas, and he did not disparage Star Wars. And the one time he did, it got him into a lot of trouble. It got him into a lot of trouble. And you can read it, Bob Iger's book about that, and it's on the internet. But it got him into a lot of trouble where, of course, he had to apologize over those statements. But once again, the damage has been done. And I don't think it's necessarily malicious of anyone per se. They just want to be outspoken and try to either spark conversation, or at least, use their platform to do what they perceive as good. So I don't believe there's any ill intentions by a lot of these celebrities, by a great majority. But if you're involved with a company, they need to have a policy, and instead of these warnings and different things like that, or being let go unprofessionally, which I believe this was, you just don't let someone go over social media. Your courtesy, your job is, as an employer, to contact this person and let them know why they're being let go.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and I also have to say is there an opportunity for that to go to that employee and say, you did this wrong and you need to apologize for it, and you need to take that down, and and it just seems like somebody finding out from social media that they no longer have a job is just really disrespectful.
Yeah, from my understanding, she was warned and she went through the media training and different things. So I understand. I think maybe she may have martyred herself. I mean, you watch the interview, and you see for yourself. I think she is a sincere person. But once again, I think once you have a company that's a large enough company, and I know that even the NFL has a lot of these protocols about how you speak and appear in public, and you do certain things that is part of the job. So I believe if you're front facing a company and you have certain obligations and different things, if you want to tote the company line, as it were, you need to be able to adhere to certain policies. Otherwise, maybe this is not a good fit for you. But I think that social media strategy is really important in this day and age when it comes to employees and their companies that they may represent or misrepresent in terms of how they posture and post on social media. So.
Look, I mean, I think that there's an awful lot of people who grew up on social media who have put all kinds of crazy stuff up that will eventually come back and bite them. So the question becomes, how far back do you go on somebody? Do you go back to their high school days? When they were, sort of stretching their boundaries and sort of, coming into their own. I mean, at that point, everybody's made mistakes and done some dumb things,
Well, this is true. And, and that's part of the thing about being an adult. If you're an adult and you understand these things about social media, then you have to be able to take the consequences of that. But I don't think people can be held accountable for mistakes, or should be held accountable for mistakes that they've done, especially in times that are, let's say, not as educated as we are now, or enlightened, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's something to be said, like what is deemed accessible in the 1970s may not fly today. Right. Sure. And you can see that in some of the forms of entertainment that we've had. And you can, and with Disney, you can see it in some of the entertainment that has been done back in the, the 30s, 40s, 50s and onward about how things change and move, and
so society changes and grows, but look, I've said this before, Aljon. I really think that celebrities, especially because they're representing a franchise or a movie or a TV show, they really have to know better.
Yep.
Honestly.
Well, Stan Lee said it best: with great power comes great responsibility.
That's right.
And speaking of power, it seems like Rian Johnson actually might still have power to do this new trilogy that was reported. Now, they completely glossed over it. In fact, there was no mention of it during the Disney investor call a couple months ago, the big presentation. But Rian Johnson, who is a great director in his own right. Knives Out, I thought, was a very fun movie. I enjoyed Knives Out. I don't know if you did, Dave.
I did. I thought that was fantastic.
It reminded me of Clue.
Certainly Daniel Craig had a terrific role in that film, and of course
Chris Evans too.
We just lost Plummer.
Yeah, Christopher Plummer. Yep.
What was that?
Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, Christopher Plummer. We just lost him a few weeks ago, and he was equally distinguished, and it was just a great cast. I really enjoyed it, and I understand they're going to do another one.
Well, that's great. I don't know how you can beat that last one, because it was really like the big whodunit, and it was engaging and it was fun. However, Ryan is also credited with helping fracture the Star Wars universe with the divisive film The Last Jedi. And apparently, before all this rigmarole came around, even before the Last Skywalker or The Rise of Skywalker came out, Kathleen Kennedy, who is the head of Lucasfilm, had greenlighted Rian Johnson's new trilogy. And apparently, according to comingsoon.net, it was reported that the Rian Johnson trilogy is still going to be taking place. And this amidst, no announcement of upcoming projects, but apparently it's still going to happen. I don't know if this is Kathleen Kennedy's just little subtle dig about all of her projects kind of being pushed aside for the Jon Favreau side of The Mandalorian and Dave Filoni side of slate of projects coming up. But I don't think this is going to help people. I don't think this is going to help. When you're trying to bring people together, especially in the era of Bob Chapek and Bob Iger in his role with Disney Plus. I don't think you're doing yourselves a lot of favors by bringing back probably the most divisive director in all of Star Wars franchise history when you're trying to get the fans back.
You didn't particularly care for The Last Jedi, I take it.
You know what? I've been known on social media to say it's grown on me, and I accepted the story for what it was. I didn't particularly like the direction of it, and I always told people I'm going to wait until I see the climactic conclusion to see how it all plays out, which I was slightly let down, but I still enjoyed the movie for what it was. I just feel that it didn't, at its heart, it didn't, as a fan, it didn't really resonate with me, but that's okay, because I understand that there's some things that didn't resonate with people with the original movies or the prequel trilogy. So I understand that. I do like a lot of the characters. I just felt that there were some missed opportunities because I really love character. I wanted to root for Rey, and I wanted to root for Finn and Poe and Kylo Ren. I wanted to find some connective tissue there. But after the first movie, I was wanting more, and I continued to want more. And when I had the opportunity to watch the Rise of Skywalker, I was just let down. I just felt like it was hollow. Was it an enjoyable trilogy of movies? Yes, I enjoyed it for what they were, which is kind of like in their own little bubble, right? In their, but as we call it now, or as they call it now, the Skywalker saga, it definitely was not the Skywalker saga. The last 3 films do not have Skywalker front and center. It was pushed aside. And that to me is a miss. Another thing that is to me a miss, and I will say this, Dave, another thing that's a miss, how can you have a movie to a franchise like Star Wars and miss an opportunity to bring Han, Luke, and Leia back and have one scene together? It wasn't rocket science. Apparently they shot something and they put it on the cutting room floor. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Why do you
I don't know.
Anyway.
I can't answer that. All I can say is I think when a movie leaves you wanting more, that's a good thing.
Oh, it's a good thing until they conclude it, and then they still leave you with an empty feeling. It should resolve. It's like any good piece of music. A good piece of music, and because, Dave, you are a writer and a filmmaker, you understand the story arc, right?
Sure.
You set up the characters, then you introduce, the 3-act play. You introduce the issue, for the protagonist and the antagonist, and then you come out with the resolution, denouement, whatever you want to call it, right? So you've got the 3-act structure. I felt like, I understand the characters. Then we had the conflict. Where's the resolution? There's no resolution. I don't know. It's just writing 101 to me. But anyway, Rian Johnson, I guess he's going to be given an opportunity, and I'm not going to cancel Disney Plus. I still have a lot of things I love about Disney, but boy, I don't know where this is coming from. Let's get fans in.
You know what? Let's see what happens. I'm going to be curious to see what happens with Lucasfilm and the dynamics with Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau and all the other players involved there.
Well, yes. We'll see how it unfolds. It seems like it's just drama after drama. They can't steer away from it for whatever reason. But another thing they have been doing is coming out with some cool video game announcements. And this brand new video game coming out Nintendo Direct for download, and as well as iOS is and Android is Star Wars Hunters. And they are turning on the keys for a lot of these new developers, not just EA Games, but to just a lot of different developers to come up with great Star Wars content like Lucasfilm Games did back in the day, and some of the best games. And I own all of them. I own all those Lucasfilm games, from X-Wing from the early 2000s and now, or the mid 90s, actually. I've got a lot of those PC games, when I was flying X-Wings under those really bad graphics. But, I own those games, and it's really cool to see them kind of work with other developers instead of a single developer and come out with new and fresh content on a very regular basis. It was just, over the years of having EA Games release video games with the Star Wars license, it seems like they are very few and far between, and they've only come up with a handful of titles in the years that they've had this license. So I'm glad to see more Star Wars video games being developed. Now, Dave, you came across this story, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. This is coming to us from the Hollywood Reporter, and the headline says, Disney to face legal claim for barring employees from discussing pay. So can you shed a light a little bit on what this is about exactly?
Well, I think this is really about some women who feel as though they are not being paid in parity with their male counterparts. And I think that Disney is fighting tooth and nail to try and prevent this from becoming a class action with a group of women at the company. But, you know, this is the kind of stuff that kind of, you know, gives the company a black eye, I think. You know, the Disney used to be, I think, a company that sort of was set apart from your regular Fortune 500 companies. You know, it really was that way. And it's unfortunately not so much anymore. And this is just another one of those stories where they're trying to, you know, for whatever reason, you know, they're trying to suppress pay. And they've done this before. You know, a number of years ago, there was a whole Justice Department investigation into collusion between a number of animation studios to suppress or put a cap on how much they were paying for certain types of talent. And Disney wound up getting dinged for $100 million fine. Yeah. On that particular case. So it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves. But you know, honestly, with these types of stories that pop up every so many years, there's like almost a pattern of this kind of behavior, which is really kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, they say here, you know, the opposite is, well, it says here, policies regarding pay secrecy have been shown to negatively impact women workers' pay because they are systematically deprive female employees of the information they need to demand equal pay, writes attorney Lori Andrus.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, once again, we'll have to see.
The thing I will say is that within the company, they have pay bands. You know, there's ranges for certain jobs, you know, and, you know, sometimes when they bump somebody into that pay band, you're going to be at the lower end, and then you eventually build your way up to the higher end of that band. Right. But I think, you know, some of these folks don't even know what those bands are.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, you know, in a lot of different lines of work, there are those pay bands, and that happens, you know, as you prove yourself. If you're new or being promoted, you know, you do start off at the lower band and try to work your way up. But, you know, the last bit of this says, according to a Disney spokesperson, quote, Disney does not prohibit its employees from talking about their pay and looks forward to providing the falsity of this latest plaintiff claim. So, You know,
that's an interesting statement too, because I know when I was at the company, you know, I was just one of those people. It was just the way I was raised. I never discussed salaries. Yeah, you know,
that's how I was raised too.
I also knew that there were departments where they were completely transparent with one another. Everybody knew what everyone was making, so they knew that they were all in a range. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, you know, there were certain groups of artists from, you know, one department or one discipline. They all knew what that, you know, what the amount was that they should be making, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think in this day and age, there's websites like Glassdoor and different things where you kind of understand if you're going in for a promotion or if you're going into a new company, what the price range of salary is going to be based on your area and your area of expertise. So you can kind of gauge it, you know, depending on the company. But I'm like you, Dave. I was raised in a household where there were certain things you don't talk about.
Right.
And it's still uncomfortable for me to talk about today, which is salary or money. You don't talk about religion. You definitely don't talk about, sex. You don't talk about a lot of these things because those are very taboo things. You want to be very respectful of other people, especially if they make more money or they don't make enough money than you, or whatever. Everyone is the same. You kind of treat people with the same amount of respect. And this, to me, it's kind of weird. It's a different time.
Yeah, everybody has a comfort zone in what they will talk about. I will say though, when I was on the board at Disney, when I was on the drawing board in animation, I remember that the Screen Cartoonist Guild, which I was a member of, would do an annual survey. So it was the kind of thing where they would, send you out a survey and you would fill it out, but you didn't put your name on it and you would mail it back. So it was sort of a blind survey, but it would give the union the ability to come up with those salaries in each discipline. And it provided an opportunity for the artist to understand what the pay range was for their particular discipline, and those were good things, I think, for people to have that information.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see how this unfolds.
Yeah, it's just another one. It's a nuisance thing, but I do think that these types of stories, when they come out, it kind of erodes the Disney brand a little bit. Because you don't want to think ill of a brand that such a great iconic brand. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. When I don't like to think ill of anything that happens with the Converse brand, because I'm a Converse shoes guy. Like, I love that brand, and I hate it when controversies surround my favorite brands. Sure. The same can be said about Coca-Cola, which I'm going to steer clear of for today's show. Okay. But right. I will not steer clear. We're going to talk about, I don't know, look it up on Google, folks, and see what I'm talking about. But because I will continue to drink Coke Zero because I like Coke Zero. Just like I'll continue to watch Disney Plus because I still love the content. And speaking of content that's going to be coming to Disney Plus, how about this? This trailer is amazing.
I was born brilliant, born fast, and a little bit mad. I'm Cruella.
Wow, Dave. First of all, I have to say that coming on 5/28/21, I'm looking forward to it because I am a huge fan of Emma Stone.
Yeah, no, I think Emma Stone is terrific. And for all of our listeners, if you have an opportunity, look at this brand new trailer, the official trailer for Disney's Cruella, starring Emma Stone as Cruella DeVille. And I have to say, when I first watched this, Aljon, earlier this week, I was left with the impression of this is Disney's Harlequin.
Yeah.
It felt like that to me. The Harlequin from movies from DC. Yeah. Over at Warner Brothers. This absolutely had that kind of a feel to me in how they were going to take Cruella. And I thought that was very interesting.
Man, I love it. I think you're right on the money when it with the your thoughts on it, because the tagline is brilliant, bad, and a little bit mad. May 2021. Brilliant, bad, and a little bit mad. Boy, doesn't that sound like Harlequin?
It does a little bit, and I guess that they're releasing this in May into theaters.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that Disney is taking a little bit different approach than HBO and Warner Brothers with their whole HBO Warner Brothers Max HBO Max approach of just releasing all their films on the streaming platform and not going into theaters. I think this is going to be a great thing for them. as the world kind of comes back to some type of normalcy. But I'll read the boilerplate for you all. Academy Award winner Emma Stone from La La Land, of course, stars in Disney's Cruella, an all-new live-action film about the rebellious early days of cinema's most notoriously fashionable villains, the legendary Cruella de Vil. Cruella, set in the 1970s London, amidst punk rock revolution, follows a young girl named Estella, a clever and creative girl determined to make a name for herself with her designs. She befriends a pair of young thieves who appreciate the appetite for mischief, and altogether they're able to build a life for themselves on the London streets. So,
as criminals,
that's what
it should. It's missing that as criminals,
yes. But that's the thing, right? I mean, yeah, she is devilishly bad, which is why we like Cruella de Vil. She is just a little devil. And I love the whole punk rock attitude, the whole Sid and Nancy, CBGB's kind of, really street vibe appeal of this punk rock established villain, because that's kind of like the resurgence of that type of music and that CBGB's vibe. And I remember they posted some pictures when they announced Emma Stone taking this role on of the kind of punk rock look that they were going for, very Sex Pistols like. And I thought to myself, this looks really cool, because I mean, she is a fashionista, and that's kind of like that whole, punk rock attitude coming from London all the way to the United States, in that era. I think it's really neat. I can't wait to see what happens.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing it. That's all I can say is that I'm looking forward to seeing. I think Emma Stone is a terrific actress. I enjoy watching her in films, and the production value of this looks really good.
I wonder if they're establishing a Disney universe, kind of like an MCU, because you mentioned this, kind of take on the Harlequin DC universe kind of thing, and I'm thinking to myself, they're just making more of these really cool live action remakes or retellings of these films. Like, I thought the Beauty and the Beast live action remake was great. I really enjoyed Maleficent. I actually really enjoyed Maleficent, and I came in with low expectations, because I was like, it's going to be cool. I don't really know if this is going to pan out, but I ended up really liking it. And I actually also really liked Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
So,
oh no, I thought Tim Burton did a fabulous job on Alice in Wonderland, the live action. The first one was really terrific. I really enjoyed it.
I agree. I agree with that. So,
which is a good segue into our next story, because it's Tim Burton is doing a Wednesday Addams live action series.
Man, Dave, you just
for Netflix.
That is just one of the best segues ever. And so another thing to look forward to, we talked about this a few months ago on the show about Tim Burton and his Addams Family revival, if you will. So it says here, according to Hollywood Reporter, Netflix has handed out a straight-to-series 8-episode order for Wednesday, a live-action offshoot of the Addams Family from director Tim Burton and showrunners Al Gough, not to be confused with me, and Miles Millar from Smallville and Into the Badlands, which are great series. The series is described as a sleuthing, supernaturally infused mystery, charting Wednesday Addams' years as a student at the Nevermore Academy, and Wednesday's attempts to master her emerging psychic ability and thwart a monstrous killing spree that has terrorized the local town and solved the supernatural mystery that embroiled her parents 25 years ago. Wow.
I think it's going to be. I think it's terrific. I think that the fact that Tim Burton is doing this is fantastic, because he's been a big fan of Charles Addams, the cartoonist who came up with the whole Addams Family back in the late 1930s. You can see the influence of Charles Addams in The Nightmare Before Christmas, which was Tim's baby. And so I think, Tim's in the mind of Charles Adams because he's such a fan of the cartoonist. And so I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to probably be visually stunning. I'll be curious to see who he brings on as a production designer, if it's a longtime person he's worked with or not. I don't know. But it just seems like it's going to be a really terrific project.
Yeah, there's
and
nothing.
I'll be curious too if he's going to film it in London, if they're doing it in London.
Interesting call. I agree. I don't think there's anything that Tim Burton has put his hands on that I didn't like. In fact, going back to the whole Disney live action thing, I thought his Dumbo was great. Like, I really enjoyed Dumbo. Did you like the live action Dumbo?
Okay, so here's what I will say.
Okay.
I loved the live action Dumbo film. I thought that the ending was it smacked of studio executives forcing them in.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Dumbo and his mother going back to Africa, as opposed to reviving this circus and becoming the star that he was at the end of the Dumbo animated film.
Just a little woke. I get it. It. Yeah. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. But still, I enjoyed it. I still really enjoyed it. All that said, and Danny DeVito, this was great. Once again, we go back to Alice Through the Looking Glass and the other stuff that Burton has done, and going back to one of my favorite superhero movies, Batman, and his revival of Batman. But I think you're right. He's got such a great eye for that style, and he embodies that style in everything he does. And you talk about, that's a true artist right there. I think he just, everything he does has a certain look and a certain slant that you can look at a Tim Burton touched project and you can say, yeah, that's Tim Burton. His fingerprints are all over that stylistically.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, he did a film, a few years ago, Miss Peregrine's Home of Peculiar Children.
Yep.
Again, when you look at the body of work that he's done, there is a stylistic thread that goes through it all that I really like visually. I really enjoy it.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. Can't wait. So Wednesday, coming soon on Netflix. Can't wait for that. Yeah. Speaking of streaming, it looks like Apple is going to acquire the show or the movie Luck and Spellbound from Skydance Animation, Dave. I know that you've had friends that work at these various studios, but it looks like Apple has unveiled an overall deal with Skydance Animation for feature films and TV series for Apple TV Plus streaming service, which allows Apple holding initial talks to acquire movies for the streaming service with original films like Luck and Spellbound, along a season 2 order for Search of Wandala. Did I say that right? Wandala series? I'm familiar with that.
I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really hate when they come up with names that people have difficulty pronouncing.
I think it's just names that, I was supposed to visit the optometrist last week, but I got snowed in. So maybe it's just me not reading my monitor right. So I'll just blame it on my eyes. But yeah, it says the deal promises more TV films and series for a multi-year impact with Skydance Animation for Disney Plus, for Apple TV Plus. Skydance is best known for its tentpole projects, including Mission Impossible, Star Trek, and Terminator franchises, and its television output includes Grace and Frankie, Altered Carbon, both on Netflix, Jack Ryan on Amazon, and Dietland on AMC, among other shows. And Skydance has another former Disney person there at the helm as well. So, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, more animation coming and more animators hopefully going to be in tow and keeping their job secure.
Yeah. I really am looking forward to seeing if the team that did Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse does another movie, because that was such a refreshing film to come along. stylistically. I thought it was really, really well done. And, again, we've talked in previous shows about the fact that a lot of the CG animation being done today, it's all starting to blend together. It's all starting to look the same, and humanoid characters and things like that. I just would like to see some kind of stylistic variety.
Yeah, well, I have news for you, Dave. They're doing a sequel of Into the Spider-Verse 2.
Oh, good.
So
Excellent.
Sony,
I'm glad to hear that.
So Sony's doing it.
Look,
And I like
that was humanoid characters, but it was a very stylized visual look.
I loved it.
And I was blown away by it. I thought that they had done a fantastic job putting that film together.
I did too, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Sony Animation did a bang-up job, and I can't wait for the next one. And I like the choices that they've done with the film, because it doesn't look like everything Disney or DreamWorks How to Train Your Dragon. It has its own look and feel, and the way they did the frames, in the kind of fast. I don't know. You're the filmmaker, Dave, so. They did this frame thing. It's almost like a frame skip, which kind of is what you do in action, a lot of action scenes, so that it looks more fast paced. And I thought it was just me, like, is my streaming working okay? But no, it was just a stylistic choice that they did where it almost looks stop motion like. I don't know. It was very cool what they did. And you're right, it doesn't look like anything else.
And by the way, speaking of stop playing, Disney suffered a huge outage with their streaming service, because they had put up the latest WandaVision episode. That's what they're blaming it on. But I guess there was a rush of so many people to watch the latest episode of WandaVision that the system crashed.
They started WandaVision and people were just freaking out, like, is this Marvel? Like, what am I watching? It's just so weird. And then they come out with the last 2 episodes and they're like, oh my gosh, it's legit. Like, this is crazy time. I don't understand what's going on, but I love it. And now it's crashing servers. And here we go, Kevin Feige, you're doing it again. And people are loving the show. I hope, Dave, you're catching up. Hope you're catching up.
Yeah, I'm a few episodes behind, but I do have to say that if you can label something a success when you crash the system because there was this overwhelming demand to watch something, I think that's sort of a good thing. To some extent, obviously not to the folks that were wanting to try and watch something that morning, but the system, some of these streaming apps are still in their, they're still growing pains, and they're still working out some bugs and things like that. Having been able to use the interface on 3, 4, 5 different streaming services right now, I can tell you that some are much better than others.
Oh, this is true. Well, speaking of some services, it looks like Paramount Plus is trying to get better in terms of their content. Dave, we mentioned the fact that Paramount Plus is merging with CBS All Access. It seems like the powers that be finally understand that Paramount has a lot of content. CBS has a lot of content. They're both owned by the same company. So why not just join forces? And while a lot of redundant people will probably be, taken out and lose their jobs, because of redundancies, they are looking at getting the most content for people's dollar as they're all fighting. And it looks like they may be reviving some old shows. Like one of my favorites, Kristen and I's favorite show, was done by ABC. What was it? The ABC licensing or whatever it was. It's called Criminal Minds.
ABC Studios, wasn't it?
ABC Studios, yeah. It was ABC Signature now is what they call it. So it looks like they're trying to revive Criminal Minds, which I absolutely love. I mean, I love the cast of Criminal Minds, but it looks like the streamer, which will be rebranded, of course, from CBS All Access in March to Paramount Plus, is reviving Criminal Minds.
No, I got Criminal Minds ran for like 10 years, didn't it?
15.
15. Okay, 15
Yeah.
years. And wasn't there the lead guy? Didn't he sort of leave abruptly?
Yeah. So after a couple seasons, Mandy Patinkin,
Well,
of
it
course.
was Mandy. Mandy changed out.
Yep.
But who was the guy that was on Dharma and Greg?
Thomas Gibson.
That was it, Thomas Gibson, because he was on it for like 12 years or something.
Yeah, and then he had a social
abruptly left.
Yeah, and apparently he got into a kerfuffle with one of the show writers and producers, and then he left. And then afterwards, there was a bunch of different comings and goings of some of the main actors and actresses because of, when you have a long running series like this, there's negotiations and pay, and they wanted to cut the pay, and they wanted to bring the series up, because it already lasted plus 7 years. So they're already making a lot of money in syndication, and it went on for 15 years. And they've had they had a hard time keeping some of the core cast members together because of contract pay situations. So there was a revolving cast of characters over the last 5 years of the series on TV on CBS. But according to longtime showrunner and executive producer Erica Messer, who has recently extended her overall deal with ABC Signature, is expected to return for its new incarnation, but it's unclear which of any of the original cast members from Criminal Minds will be back for the update. They're also eyeing to bring back CSI, featuring William Peterson and Georgia Fox, which also I was a huge fan of every CSI episode. I've got them all on DVD. Just like
all I can say about some of this is that this is sort of the recycling of content in Hollywood that's been going on for years. They just keep going back to things that had been done, and they're just retreading them. And why not? I really wish that some of these studios would try some original new material and put some fresh stuff out instead of constantly rebooting things that had been on the air, 10, 20 years ago.
So speaking of something fresh and recycling things, if you had to recommend a new series to someone with streaming, do you have a particular series that you would recommend for people? What are you watching right now? Is there something
like WandaVision has been really terrific. I think people should watch that. Of course, The Mandalorian. I can't think off the top of my head something new that, as far as a series goes, that I have watched recently. I'm actually watching some old series that I never watched completely through. So I'm actually streaming some of the X-Files.
Okay.
That I hadn't seen back when it was first out.
Nice.
So, look, I'm always looking for something good. And there's been a rash of really limited series where there's, 8 or 10 episodes, and that's the run of the show. The Undoing. With Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
Was absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend. Hugh Grant was in it. Highly recommend it. It was absolutely fantastic. Really well done. So some of those types of shows I think have been really great to watch.
Yeah, and on my end, again, if you're a fan of horror, like my wife and I are, I will suggest you watch Black Mirror on Netflix. That's a really easily digestible series. It's it's the modern version of The Twilight Zone, which, by the way, my wife and I did watch The Twilight Zone. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peele, and those are actually really good as well. And I'll also go to Netflix for the series You, which is also a drama, very adult drama about murder and suspense and books and just kind of craziness that happens there in a bookstore, which might actually intrigue you, Dave. But I warn you that it is very adult in nature. So, but definitely a new series to be on the lookout for. Speaking of new series, I think one of the last stories we're going to tackle is J.J. Abrams. So, a new series quote, which is called Subject to Change at HBO Max, is going to see JJ at the helm. It says the series is described as a harrowing, mind and reality bending adventure and marks the latest endeavor for the streamer for the prolific writer and producer. So he's going back to TV. As you know, JJ's known for his work on ABC's Lost series as well as Alias, both for ABC. And he's bringing more of his TV chops to Warner and HBO Max. So I think they're finally making use of JJ's talent. He's definitely up there now. He's been signed to a multi-year contract with Warner Media. I think they gave him $500 million for a bunch of content creation for the channel. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Are you a big fan of JJ's work?
I am. I like his movies. I think he's sort of the next up and coming, sort of Spielberg like director out there.
Yeah, I think he's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed his Star Trek reboot, and I did watch Alias, and I tried watching Lost until I got lost. So, but yeah,
he did a Star Trek, didn't he?
Yep, he did. He did a couple actually. He did.
Yeah.
He did the 2009.
I really enjoyed those Star Trek films.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun. A lot of fun for sure. Last but not least, Dave, it looks like cruises will be back in action by the end of 2021. Carnival CEO predicts most cruise ships will be back as they face a high level of uncertainty and scrutiny. But there you go. According to Travel Pulse, Donald, CEO Andrew, I'm trying to read this, I'm sorry, Arnold Donald of the Travel Leaders Group said that what I will predict is this. I think that certainly by the end of this year, most, if not all, of the fleet will be out there. I'm optimistic will be in action. I think there's really a high probability that all of them will be back by the end or by early next year if things continue to progress the way that they have. So there you go. Hopefully the cruise line will see their activity getting back on the waters and getting people to their vacation destinations. So there you have it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now that it's my firm belief that the cruise industry will be back on its feet by the end of this year. Certainly by mid-fall, I think that there'll be cruises going out regularly. And I think that the smaller ships, the Regents and the Oceania and cruise lines like that, Silver Seas, the smaller ships, I think are going to do really well and bounce back very quickly because, look, if you had your choice of going on a ship with 600 or 700 people as opposed to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people, I mean, I'd prefer to go on the smaller ship personally.
Right on. Well, I think it's great that, travel, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully we'll be back to enjoying some great vacations at the parks and having some cruises in the near future.
It can only get better. It can only get better from here.
Absolutely.
Your attention, please. Now loading on track number 1 for a trip around Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom.
Skull Rock Podcast.
All aboard.
Your Main Street to the world of Disney.
Oh, Dave, we have so many great shows and guests ahead. We want to give a little teaser.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm looking forward to having my friend Ted Kiersey. He's a master effects animator. He was a colleague of mine at the Walt Disney Animation Studios for many years. We worked together on so many different projects. We split an office for a couple of years. His photographs are showcased in my latest book, 3D Disneyland Like You've Never Seen It Before, which, as I mentioned last week, won a gold award from the Nonfiction Book Awards. So looking forward to having Ted on next week. That's going to be a really fun show. I also want to let our listeners know that I had a article published in the Ephemera Journal, which is from the Ephemera Society of America. They put out a journal 3 times a year, and I have a wonderful essay in there that's Disney related. It's on the Disney advertising ink blotters. And if you want to know what those are, you can now read it on cartoonresearch.com. If you go to cartoonresearch.com, you'll be able to see the essay and see all the images of the advertising ink blotters that I've collected over the years and put this whole piece together. So it's an interesting, little article that I think a lot of people are going to go, wow, I had no idea.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know about this site, but it looks really cool.
I regularly contribute to Cartoon Research. And so you can go there, and at the top of the site, you'll see a bunch of names, and just click on my last name, Bossert, and it'll take you to all of my articles. And the latest one is Walt Disney Classified, the Advertising Ink Blotters. So check it out if you have some time and you want to read something interesting that you probably have never heard about before in the Disney universe.
That's great. And there is a whole bunch of articles that Dave has posted. Great reads, and definitely a little bit too on 3D Disneyland. He's got a little primer there for you. And there are also great articles there from the likes of Greg Airbar and Jim Corcus. So there's a lot of really great people there contributing to that. So I'll definitely bookmark that, and I will put that link in the show notes. So
absolutely. That's all I got, Aljon. I think it was another great show. It was wonderful chatting with you and talking about all the stuff in the news.
Likewise, absolutely. I love our little weekly chats, and we love the fact that you join us for these as well. So once again, if you love Disney, you love pop culture, don't forget to subscribe to the show. If you just kind of stumbled upon us, this relatively new podcast. So we do appreciate you listening and giving us those reviews on Apple Podcast and Spotify and everywhere you can find our podcast. You can also give us a like and send us some email and messages through skullrockpodcast.com, also through our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And send us those emails. Once again, Dave at skullrockpodcast.com or Aljon, Aljon, at skullrockpodcast.com. And if you do happen to follow us on LinkedIn, let us know that you heard about linking with us on LinkedIn in your message to us so that we can go ahead and add you, because I don't know. Sometimes people will add me on LinkedIn. I'm like, where'd you find us from? Like, I don't know if you're just trying to give me a cold call solicit or what, so just hit us up. Dave, anything else as we wrap things up?
No, I just want to, send our heartfelt best wishes out to all of our friends and all the people who have suffered through that big storm through Texas. And their weather is warming up into the 50s to 70s in the coming days. And we hope that you all recover as quickly as possible. And, all I can say, Aljon, is that things are going to get better. We're coming out of this. The light is at the end of the tunnel, and we're going to be back into the swing of it. And I think there will be a summer. There will actually be a summer this year. And I think the parks are going to be open. I think Disneyland will be reopened by the summer, even at a reduced capacity. They're already talking, by the way, Six Flags Magic Mountain, which is out here in Los Angeles by me, about them reopening in the spring. So I think things are going to start to blossom as spring arrives. Yep. And people are going to be getting out there, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, in the meantime, Dave, you have a great week, and thank you so much for listening to another edition of Skull Rock Podcast. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
I'm Kristen Hetzel, vacation planner, world traveler, Disney foodie, and theme park fan.
I'm Aljon Go. I'm the husband who's also Disney, Star Wars, and Marvel Comics fan. And together, we host a Disney List podcast.
Every week, you'll hear us list our favorite things about Disney theme parks, films, shows, travel, Marvel, and Star Wars in a top 10 list, rankings, and more.
That's an impressive list. Subscribe to the Disney List podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast platform. You can even stream us on Sorcerer Radio at srsounds.com and check out our live shows on Facebook. The Disney List podcast. Visit thedisneylist.com.